everybody for coming. Lovely Sunday morning in Texas. We're here to talk about the Bootstrap Paragraphs module. My name is Jim Birch. I work at Xenomedia in Chicago, Illinois. Digital strategist. We do Drupal and WordPress development. You can follow me at the Jim Birch on Twitter and GitHub and Drupal and everywhere else. And you can follow the slides at jimbir.ch/bp. So, the Bootstrap Paragraphs module. This is a module I made over the last year that provides a suite of content and layout paragraph bundles made with and for the Bootstrap front-end framework. So it's not exclusive to the Bootstrap theme in Drupal. You can use it in any theme that includes the Bootstrap framework. There's a demo site linked from the slides. It's bp.jimbirch that I go through, and this is where I test everything, and I have all the examples of what can be done with the module. How many people here are using paragraphs right now? Nobody? So a couple people messing around with it? Okay. If you are, like me, I've been doing it for about a year or two. I started in Drupal 7 and moved to Drupal 8. It's basically a way to have structured content in your nodes. And a lot of people start building paragraphs, and we build a 3-column paragraph, or we build a text on the side and an image on this side paragraph, or a slideshow. But every single time I go back to a site I did last year, I built it just a little bit differently than I'm doing now. You know, it's just like an evolution of a process, and then when I go back to work on a site, I need to, figure out how I did it a year ago. If you're not using paragraphs, install the site on a demo site, and you can see the whole range of possibilities of what paragraphs can do. Just install it, start setting up pages, write a blog or a recipe or something. Just get started, and seeing what you can do with it, always helps teach you what you can do on your own, what your own needs are. So when I was making this module, I wanted to make a module that would create the base that was needed for every site. Like, I didn't want to start from scratch making that 2-column or the carousel again. I've made it once, now I can use it everywhere. I wanted to create the base templates and CSS that could be used on the sites and use the Bootstrap theme. I wanted to harness the power of entity reference revision fields to nest paragraphs. So once we have the paragraph structure, we can put paragraphs inside of paragraphs inside of paragraphs. It's a really powerful tool. And then one thing in the modern web, I wanted to have global width and background colors. Like we have long scrolling pages now with colors that go, wall to wall, depth to all sidebars everywhere. I wanted to have global settings that could be used on every single paragraph no matter what. So those are my strategies when I started to make this module. So Drupal Paragraphs. Paragraphs is a contrib module that this module builds upon. It allows administrators to create structured content and structured layouts inside of one node. So their official definition is a contrib module for Drupal that allows creation, administration, and display of customizable content components. Why we use paragraphs at Xenomedia? The first design problem was presented to me was that we wanted to have a small width of content for typography. Perfect typography, good readability is about 60 to 70 characters wide. But to have images or videos in that column was really restricting to the design. Designers wanted the videos to go full width. So how do I have text and a video, or text and an image, have different widths inside just one WYSIWYG field? I started looking, paragraphs was the answer. Structured content. I've been frustrated with text editors since 1997. We used FCK editor back then. I don't know what the F stood for, but I can imagine. WYSIWYG integration with media in Drupal 7 was buggy at best if you could get all the moving parts working. And then if you have structured content, the ability to add semantic markup, such as schema.org markup or JSON LD, in line is great. So like if I have a paragraph that references a book, like I could have the book template already have that schema.org markup. I could stick JSON LD in a paragraph bundle along with my content if I needed to. And then easy to administer layouts. So we have the content of paragraphs, but through entity reference revisions that we can nest paragraph bundles, we can allow administrators to create layouts. So we can have multiple columns. We can allow them to restructure rows. We can have heroes and slideshows and accordions and tabs and all this good elements. The Bootstrap framework. The Bootstrap framework is the most popular HTML, CSS, and JavaScript framework for developing responsive mobile-first projects on the web. Not only is it the most popular Drupal theme right now, the combination of all the WordPress themes makes it the most popular WordPress front-end framework, and it is, according to Built With, a majority of the front-end frameworks on the internet right now. Why we use Bootstrap? Its core functionality is great. It has a grid system with good markup and CSS. It has themable components like accordions and tabs. It has a really good base typography. It is well documented. You know, standardization helps teams and agencies and development shops be more productive. If somebody in my shop writes their own CSS framework, they also have to write the documentation to teach us about it. So with good documentation, onboarding new developers is quicker. It's completely customizable for large projects. So you can get the raw SAS or less files of Bootstrap with the raw JavaScript files and make your own Bootstrap. You don't have to include everything. You can add more. And it has mix-ins to add existing styles to semantic HTML. So I'm not stuck with call SM12, which is the column class. I can have class equals book and add the column classes to that if I want to. And it's best practices for small, low-budget projects. If you build it right out of the box, you can have a responsive site that is cheap, and it may look like Bootstrap, but you know it's going to work for your client. And like Drupal, it's open source. It's MIT license. They do development on GitHub. If you find problems, you can create issues or contribute back to them. So part of the inspiration was a presentation I saw 2 years ago at Twin Cities Drupal Camp by Les Lim and David Needham, who just walked in the room. Thanks, David. Called Using Paragraphs to Weave a Beautiful Content Tapestry. And they presented me with the idea of creating your paragraph bundles in 3 different buckets. They did content paragraphs, layout paragraphs, and then ponies, which everybody likes ponies. So Bootstrap Paragraphs is going to help you with the 80%. They're going to give you the content paragraphs and the layout paragraphs. The ponies are up to you. These are the special one-off paragraphs that you only need for this one project. So I want to go through the different types of bundles that we have in this module. The content bundles. These are semantically organized fields and reference fields to common entities in Drupal. So the first one we have is a simple HTML. This is your body field. This is a body field replacement. It should be your default one. It's just going to give you a WYSIWYG. Next up is an image, a blank contact form. Drupal course contact forms is great. We can reference blocks, views, and once Drupal 8.4 comes out, I hope to include media once that's in core also. For the layout bundles, here's where we get into the Bootstrap stuff. So we have columns, carousel, accordion, modal, and tabs. And it would go through the type. So we'll get into the globals in a minute, but everything has a background and a width field. So basically these are two fields on my paragraph bundles. The third field is the body field, body field replacement. So this uses the default full HTML. Go in, and if this is all you need, it's just like your basic code. Bless you. The image content bundle has a link to an image field, which has the alternative text required, which forces good accessibility. And then it's linkable also. So there's another field that's a link, and then in the template, we make sure that the images is linked if there is a link. The blank paragraph bundle. The blank is perfect for less restrictive HTML and JavaScript. So I use this for like MailChimp forms or Pardot forms or any of your JavaScript marketing needs. Basically, this gets installed, turn on a text format that allows you to put whatever you want in there, and then you can do whatever you want. This is a security risk for some, allowing your administrators to put JavaScript on the page. So if that's a concern with your content administrators, you can restrict the use of it really easily. Yes, sir.
Jim, for those of us that haven't used paragraphs before, are all these things that you're listing out, the simple and the blank and the other ones, are these content types?
They are entities, but they are not.
Explain how I go and create a piece of content using the blank. Do I go to new content?
So on your content type, you have one paragraph field. The paragraph field references all of these entities, these different types. Okay. So they are the same as a content type, but they do not have a title or a URL. So they live in the database, they get referenced, they're revisionable, but they're only referenced from this one field that's on your content type. So if you think about it, you have one body field. Here you have a stackable, world of any of these combinations on the body field, and every save, saves a copy of those two. So, you're taking that body field where before we're just allowing everybody to put anything they want in the body field and breaking it out into different entities.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. So after the blank, we have the contact form. So Drupal 8 contact forms are really good, really simple contact form replacement, web form replacement if you don't need too much complexity. And we use the contact formatter module to display them. So basically you can have existing contact forms and reference them. I also like to use a module called inline entity form on top of this field, which allows you to select an existing form or add a new one. So it's a pretty powerful tool for an administrator to be able to just whip up a blog post and add a contact form at the end, and bang, just knock that out. Drupal blocks. Drupal blocks are also entities, so we can reference them from a field. Not all of them work. In April, when I put this presentation together for DrupalCon, these were the working ones. Basically, any menus. The awesome powered by Drupal block, tabs, status messages, and there are a lot more that don't have field formatters, basically. So as Drupal grows, I'm sure we'll get those in there. But you could basically make a section on your site and reference a menu in line. So you could have an image, and you could have your page title, and you could have a block of paragraph, and then you could have a submenu in line with your content, and then a couple more paragraphs. So this is not going to be used on everything, but it's a cool tool if you need it. Views. We can reference views from paragraph bundle using this views reference field module. So now we can make a paragraph talking about something. We can add an image or a two-column, have an image in a contact form, and then we could put a view in line, and then we could have more paragraphs underneath. So it allows your administrator to rearrange the page as they see fit without touching the functionality of a view. You know, it's like a little dangerous to have them go in and change views if they want to just change the header on a view or the footer. Good question?
Can it reference any particular display of a view, or does it have to be a block display?
It references any display of a view and passes arguments also.
So it could embed a page display of a view inside another page. That's what that would allow.
I haven't tried it, but it sounds like it's possible. So you can reference the master display of the view. I've definitely done blocks. I usually don't do view pages if I can avoid it, just because then
the master is a better example of what I was getting at.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be created as a block.
Yes, so it could be an EVA or any one of the view attachments. But this is the paragraph bundle I made. All of the magic comes from that views reference field module, so which is still being worked on actively. Okay, so now we're going to get into the layout bundles. Columns is all the rage on the internet. We want to have 3 things next to each other. We want to have a sidebar and 25%, 75%. I made 3 different kinds of columns, so administrators can easily drag and drop content in the UI. The first one is a equal columns. So this allows up to 6 and distributes content evenly. So I can add a field, and I can add another field, and I can have another field. If I have 3 different simples, or a simple, an image, and a simple, they'll be distributed evenly across the screen. And then I have a 3-column uneven and a 2-column uneven. These are the same. We can drag and drop the order, but they have an additional field to add the column style. So we can have a 75%, 25%, or a 66%, 33%. And I'll show you the examples. So these are equal columns. I also showed the widths going down the screen, but 2-column, 3-column, 4-column, 5-column, 6-column, they all have different simples in there. You can just move them around and rearrange them. The 2 columns, here's the 75%, 25%, and the 2/3, 1/3, and then quarter, 3/4, the reverse of them, and they're 2/3. And the 3 uneven columns gets even more fun. So they're basically quarters and thirds all the way down.
And you can mix as many of those on the same page as you want.
Yes. And you could actually nest them if you really wanted to get into some complex gridography. New for Texas Drupal Camp, we added a column wrapper. So this works in all 3 column types. And let me show you here. So if I added 3 columns to my original idea, it would just be 3 columns, right, in the equal. Somebody asked me, well, hey, what if I want to do 2 things in the second column? Well, I had to create the column wrapper paragraph bundle. So basically, I put another nested paragraph inside of the second column, the column wrapper, and then inside of that, I put an image and a text. And that will work in all 3 of them also. Hey, there it is in a 2-column uneven. So I have the 25%, 75%, and I have 2 images and 25%, and just the simple and the next one. The carousel. Everybody loves carousels. This is just like the columns, except we also have a slide interval speed option. So it goes from 0 to 10 seconds. 0, it won't cycle at all. I think this is a 3 setting. And it has a slide content field. So just like we have the column content field, we have a slide content. So inside the slide content, I can nest any of those other ones. So here you see a 2-column with an image and a simple. Here's a 2-column with 2 simples, or just an image. So again, you can nest any of these things together inside of anything else. Like the carousel, we have an accordion. The accordion uses the Bootstrap Collapse JavaScript. So basically, this is a little bit different that we have a title, and then we have a tab or accordion section field. So like the title needs to be named because that's just a link to open it, and then inside we can have symbol or columns or contact forms or anything. It's a good way to like hide a contact form. Or a lot of product attributes you do in e-commerce. That's a lot of accordion stuff. Yes?
Could you do a nested accordion inside the accordion?
Maybe. I'd have to look at the code to see if I allowed that. I can tell you that with all of these things, you can have multiple on the page. I don't think I allow carousels in carousels. But after installation, it's simply checking a box. So if you wanted an accordion or a carousel in a carousel, you could possibly do that.
It's the double service there.
Yeah. There might be some bad usability in there. But so since DrupalCon Baltimore, I have had a number of people present me with a bunch of different things, like the two columns inside an accordion was having a problem if one was taller than the other. So we've been working through some bugs. So if you find something interesting, definitely let me know. The modal. Not everybody likes modals, but it's a part of Bootstrap, and I thought I'd include it. Like the accordion, we have that title. We have a button text that launches the modal. And then the modal in Bootstrap has a title, a body, and a footer. So I made the title just the text, the body, and the footer are references to other symbols. So here's what that looks like. Here I did a button launches the title, and at the top I have a description, and then I put a contact form in there. So again, it's a good way to put a contact form on your page and not have a lot of room. It works on mobile. Using modals on mobile is kind of a pain in the butt. I like the accordion method, actually the collapse, like it's kind of like a pop under, it just opens up the page and there's a form. And then the last one I believe is tabs. So this is very similar to the accordion. We have a tab title, and then you have your content that goes in the tab section. So we have columns and symbols, contact forms, images, whatever you want. So those are the basic paragraph types. And now we dance. Talk about the global settings. So every paragraph, whether it's content or layout, has one of 5 widths or a ton of background color options. And I made this using list or text select fields. So the widths, this is made to center your content. So I shop on Amazon. I get Amazon Prime boxes delivered to my house all the time. And while it's like the greatest commerce website in the world, like if you ever looked at it on your big monitor, your text is this wide on, going wall to wall. If I have a good chunk of text, I just want to have it right in the middle, or an image big, or like a video that's full screen. I might not be able to see the top and the bottom on my, Mac with the browser Chrome and a bookmark bar and another SEO toolbar and all this stuff. So I want to control the widths of things. And to center them, I use the Bootstrap offsets. So the Bootstrap grid is a width of 12. So if I have a tiny column, this is a 4. This is going to be a third of the page. And then I offset it a 4 from the side, so it's centered in the middle. So I have an offset 4, and then I have another 4 with the content, and then the rest is just ignored. So and then we can go down through the rest. And here's what that actually looks like. So this is the same image put in, 5 different paragraphs going down the page. So I have tiny all the way down through full. And this works on anything, in anything. So if I had a carousel that was full screen, I could have one slide that was tiny. I could have the next slide that's width. So it gives you a lot of possible options. Background colors. As you're doing these long pages of rows, it's good to alternate colors to give clear sections to the pages. So I made a list of 50 background colors, and then I also included 5 classes with the Bootstrap nomenclature: primary, secondary, success, info, warning, danger. These are also kind of like the message colors that come with Drupal. So you could add these classes to your theme, and your administrators could choose them. This is what all the colors look like. Basically just a range of material, designy kind of colors with strong, light, and slight. I'm not in love with this scenario. I wanted to have a list of colors to launch the module without allowing that direct input from an administrator or forcing an administrator to choose hex values. So if anybody else has better ideas for background colors, I'd love to hear them in the issue queue. I created an issue like 3 months ago. There is a module called Color Field for Drupal 8, which allows you to have like a nice little color picker and save the value, but it's in alpha, and you need 2 patches to get it to work, and a patch on this and something like that. So I can't really use it in a distribution or a module. So we've talked about the paragraph bundles, and we've talked about the width and the global settings here. I wanted to go through and give a little bit about the template strategy and the markup. This is a little bit deeper dive, but using this as the base for your Drupal, you're going to want a theme on top of it. So I want to go through these things here. Every paragraph has a template. The markup around it is div.paragraph. Here we apply the Bootstrap row classes. The row stretches from edge to edge in a container fluid. This is what most page templates have. And rows also work if they're nested in other columns. So this is the magic sauce that I can nest them all together. Also with the paragraph, I use a CSS system called BEM, Block Element Modifiers. So this basically says anything on the paragraph, on your block, which is the top one, the modifiers on that help you give more specificity, and then elements inside of that give it even more specificity. So my modifiers on the default paragraph are these 4 things. The type. So if I'm an image, if I'm a carousel, if I'm a simple, I can add this class. Which view mode? This is default from the paragraphs template. So by default, we're using default. But if you were using a teaser view mode, you could also do that. The width gets applied here, and the color gets applied here. Inside, we have our elements, and elements get that underscore rather than dashes because they need the paragraph above it, and that's where we get the column. So here's where we actually apply the width. So we have a row, and then we have a width container on there inside of it. And then some magic twig stuff. I print the content, and I don't print the width field or the background field. This we take out in the next step. Anybody love twig here? No, just me. No, you. Okay. So Here, this is in the twig template, we basically pull out the width, we pull out the colors, we say add those things as classes, we add the classes, and then we print the content without them. So while we're taking fields from the database in Drupal, not printing them on the page, because we're stripping them out beforehand and turning them into classes. So that's how the width and the background colors fields work. In the templates, I use the Drupal 8 asset libraries. So I pull in the CSS needed for these paragraph bundles only when the templates are loaded. So that helps save a little loading time. So if you have a content type that doesn't use this at all, the CSS won't get loaded, the JavaScript won't get loaded. And template strategy, I like to put this into this field or this structured content into its own section. Because I want to go with 100%, so those background colors or the full images go all the way to the edge. I want to keep my page title and my tabs in another section, another content section in the page, so that page title doesn't go all the way to the edge. Okay, so overriding. Once you install Bootstrap Paragraphs, your theme has higher priority. You can override it there. Once you install the module, the paragraph bundles and the fields are kept in your database and then in your configuration. So any changes you make to this will be yours. So if you go in, install this module, and delete all those colors, yeah, there would be no colors. This is yours to convert. Your CSS and your templates are higher priority than this module. So anything you do here will be overridden, or anything you do in your theme will be overridden from what's in the module. In fact, you can install this module and then uninstall it and still keep all the functionality. So you'd install it, everything goes in your config. If you're doing configuration export, bang, you put it into your code base and you're done with that. The next thing, move the templates into your theme and remove the attached library call, because the library is part of the module. You don't want that anymore. You can move the CSS files to the theme and call them from your theme's library, or you can put them into your own CSS, and you can tell all your coworkers, look at all these paragraph modules I made, I'm awesome. When I thought of that, when I figured out you could install a module, get this ton of functionality, and then uninstall it, it presented a unique way to extend this. I have these fields in the system. So what I wanted to do was create a custom block bundle type. So are people making custom blocks? Blocks in Drupal 8 are entities now. They can stand alone. So basically it's just like a content type, except it doesn't have a URL. So you can make all sorts of custom block types. So like I have an add custom block type. It's like a decent example of something that doesn't live on its own, doesn't need to have a URL or a path or a title. And then we can reference these things from a paragraph. So we're going to make a new custom block type called awesome block. So we're going to use the Drupal block as an example. And this is what the Drupal block looks like. So it has the background in the width field, and then it has a field that's an entity reference to a block. So here we add a new paragraph type. We call it awesome block. We add the background field and the width field. These are already existing fields in our database. And then, bang, you instantaneously have that same functionality. You add a new reference field, a reference revision field. The makers of paragraphs made the entity reference revisions field, so they know paragraphs exist. They don't know what else exists. So you have other is the first option. On the next screen, you can select from paragraph, content, or custom block. On the next screen, we select the awesome block. You could leave this, or you could select all of them and reference any block of the system, but we don't want the not so awesome blocks. We only want the awesome blocks. So we select that, and then bang, we have that same paragraph bundle, just like the Drupal block, but it's a custom block. And then we need to manage the display. So to manage the display, the background and the width, we set up like the key format from the select list, and the awesome block gets rendered as the rendered entity of what that block looks like. So there you go. You made a paragraph block that extended, or paragraph bundle that extended your block system, extended the Bootstrap Paragraphs system in just a minute or two. The hero is a more complex example. This is what it looks like. I also have it on the demo page. So it's a big full screen image. It has a subtle zoom effect. It has a parallax effect. Background image, paragraph reference field for the content, parallax, image overlay, so we can put in darkness over the image, or an image overlay invert, a whiteness over the image, then that zoomy Ken Burns kind of effect here. So this has a background image, it has the content field, and then 4 select fields. Again, we have, for the select fields, we print the keys, the image we print in the image, and then the rendered entity, any paragraphs we want, we can put inside it. More complex twig stuff here. We do classes and data overlays for the JavaScript. We're pulling those select fields out in the templates. The parallax speed options, so not only can we have a slow fade, we can have a fast fade. And then we merge that stuff in and print the classes and then stick it in here. The only difference is here, so now we have the content without the 4 fields, and we have another field for the image. So the hero is a more complex example of extending this. And I'm actually going to move this into the module. Since I've been working on this, I've had a dozen people ask me to put that in. So hopefully in the next release, I'll have this one in there. So something Ben and I were talking about yesterday, and like installing this module and uninstalling it. I built this module using the Drupal UI. I clicked everything together. While I know enough Twig to be dangerous, and I know enough PHP to be dangerous, I'm really just a site builder. So clicking stuff together is, why I love Drupal, or got me, sucked in the first place. So I built all these fields in the UI. I built all the bundles in the UI and added them to the fields and experimented and did all sorts of stuff. With Drupal 8, using this config system, we can use the UI to create modules from configuration. So here's just a quick primer on how I did that. It really gets that create once, reuse everywhere, create once, publish everywhere kind of approach. So this is how I built a custom module to install a paragraph bundle. I always start up a blank Drupal installation. So there isn't a lot of cruft in there that I have to deal with taking out. I usually spin up a sandbox on Pantheon. You can do it on your favorite host of choice. Install paragraphs, or in this case, I'm extending Bootstrap Paragraphs, so I install Bootstrap Paragraphs, which installs everything's needed. I create the module structure. I go in and I just make a custom module folder by hand. You can also use Drupal Composer to probably write one command, and that outputs the folder structure. I add templates, CSS, JavaScript. There's one function in this module, and it's a function that says, look over here for these templates. It's kind of like the same theme hook you would use in your theme to do it. And then once everything's ready, once I'm ready to test, I export the configuration. I delete the UUIDs. This is what makes the configuration specific to a site. Get rid of that, and it's gone. And then namespace and change the field names. And I'll go through each of these steps right now. So we spin up a sandbox and start working. This is what the module structure looks like. So this is the Xeno Hero. The config and install, that's where your config files go. Your CSS and JavaScript, that's standard theme stuff. Your templates folder, there's one template. There's a README, I think that has a description of what this is. The info file, this has the information about the module, dependencies needed. The libraries file, that calls the CSS and the JavaScript. And then in the module, that's where the function is that says use this template. Add the template CSS and JavaScript. So in this case, the Hero module, I created a standalone module that worked off of Bootstrap Paragraphs. I just grabbed the Bootstrap Paragraphs template, and started working from that. This is what that function looks like. So it has the module name, Xeno Hero, and then theme. It's like a hook theme is what the function is. And we say if you see paragraphs Xeno Hero, use this template. Look over here for this template. Simple as that. And then here's what the config file looks like. So this is probably the scariest part of it. There's config files for the paragraph bundle, the field storage, the actual field, and then the display of the paragraph and the form of the paragraph. So there's 5 templates for each module. But what we do here is delete the UUID. First line, goes. The next thing we needed to do was change the field. So in the first instance of Bootstrap Paragraphs, the first branch, 1.x, I just kept it as is. It worked great for anybody who had just installed it, but if you had a field called background image already, it wouldn't install. So when I went through everything that says field underscore and changed it to BP underscore, it's called namespacing. So coming up with your own namespace for your own module is very important if other people are going to use it.
What I've done to deal with potential collisions, because when you deal with config, there's config install, and I don't know if you'd be able to use this thing because I'm just trying to keep up with what you're describing here. Anyway, I don't know the exact steps you did. But like instead of putting something under config install, if you put it under config optional, what ends up happening is if it doesn't exist, like your fields and et cetera that you define, it'll put it in there. And if it does exist, it's like, oh, great, it exists now. I don't need to worry about that one, and I'll just use the one that's there.
Super fun.
So I don't know if you could use that method just to save you doing all this namespace and stuff. Try using config optional instead of config install. The one downside that I've seen of using config optional, though, is that when you use config install, your module says, I must have all of this stuff, and if I can't get it, I'm going to blow up and I'm going to let you know about it. If you use config optional, in addition to saying, oh, cool, if this exists, I don't need to do it, I'll go ahead and use it, and I'll proceed merrily along with everything I want, it also says, oh, that thing didn't exist that I need to have, and I don't define it, like, okay, well, you said it was optional anyway, and I'm still going to proceed merrily along, and I'm not going to complain about it. So, that's one risk you need to know about config optional, but it's kind of a nice way to avoid some of these things where things blow up in your face.
Sure.
What happens if you have a strong type mismatch? Like it's already called that field, but it's not the type you're expecting, and it doesn't regrade it because it thinks, oh, it's the same thing, but it's really an image instead of text or something like that.
Right, so your module is going to know to complain about the way that I use config optional is that when I know that I'm doing stuff that probably something else is already defined, if I know there's something that I have to have a certain way and I can't count on it, then I would make sure that I've got my own configuration, my own field name, or my own whatever, so I know it's not going to collide with anything else.
Right.
What I do with a lot of my config when I name stuff is I'll actually do like my own little slug that I'll put into my namespace, like in field names and stuff like that, because that also makes it easier for you to find and pull just your config that you needed out of there, because you know to look for your slug. Because when you've got config, a lot of that'll have some type of tie back to whatever you built. So I would do that type of a thing, like when you're dealing. Anytime I do fields and do configuration, I always make sure that my fields. So you're doing BP, so all of my fields would have the BP slug in their name there. And so now when I search my config for any file that has a name that's like BP, I can find all of my config ones. So I would make sure that in your case, if you need something that has to be typed a certain way, make sure you use the slug. So you're going to grab your config, and then when you go ahead, you put it in optional. Everything should come together beautifully.
And it's not only here, so this is actually, these are config dependencies. So these are actually looking for the file names of field underscore. So we have to change it inside the config, like inside where the fields are called, and then in the actual file names also. But cool trick about the optional, Ben and I were talking yesterday about a way to extend this to meta tag configs. So if we had a default meta tag set up, that might be a really good use case for optional, where is if somebody's already set this up, we don't want to override it. But if it's not there, let's stick it in. So then, after you do this, you want to install it on another sandbox. You need to test everything out, before you release it in the world, before you put it in your project, just to make sure it does install from a base installation. So I usually, set it up on GitHub and then bang. And this is linked. The Xeno Hero is actually just the standalone Hero paragraph bundle. It exists on GitHub, but soon I'll change the namespacings from Xeno underscore to BP underscore and stick it into the Bootstrap Paragraph module. All right, so let's finish up, and then everybody can get to Drupal. Using frameworks benefits productivity. So that's why we use Bootstrap. That's why we use Drupal. That's why we started to use paragraphs. And that's what I was trying to do when I created this module, to give you that base. You can use this approach with other front-end frameworks. Singularity is a nice grid system that is very, very light, not as robust as Bootstrap. I use this methodology with that. Foundation is another big one. A lot of people use slick carousels, and they come up with a complex module to use it all and give you a million settings, where you could come up with just a really light instance in a paragraph bundle, to give somebody a slick carousel, or whatever other scripts or front-end frameworks you're using. So I got to throw some thanks out. The Paragraphs module is maintained by MD Systems and VDMI and Jerome, who made it in the first place. Les and David for their inspiration. There is a Drupal Twig Slack where basically all these awesome front-end devs just kind of hang out and chat, and I always have the how-to channel open, whether I know the answer to somebody or not, or something or not, I try to help out, but more I just, pop in there and read stuff. People like, hey, I have this problem, let me, help you out, and I don't know the answer, but I'll come back a day later and see that's a really creative solution for something I don't know, and I can always, go back and search for it later. And all the people in Stack Overflow, Scott Reeves, who we had at MidCamp, Kotzer, there's a while where I was building this module and I'd Google something and end up on Stack Overflow, and I'd always answer on something that this guy answered and find the solution for it. So I work at Xeno in Chicago. Click here if you want to learn more about us. And my amazing coworker, Albertsky, who does all the hard Drupal 8 things with me. So that's it. You can always find the slides at DP and review me if you enjoyed it or not. Any questions?
I've actually used your module. It's been maybe a month or so since I used it, but I was amazed at how easy it was to install and just get up to speed. For anyone who hasn't used paragraphs or something like that, I advise just install it and play around with it. It's a quick installation. It works really good, well out of the box.
Awesome. Thank you.
One thing that I did notice that when I was using it was that it made the admin form very long. All these options. I got almost confused, like, what did I do? Where did I do? It's all drag and droppable where you can actually change the different paragraphs.
It is whether you use this framework or your own framework for the paragraphs, the admin screen gets big if you start putting things out there.
Yeah, one of the things that I like to do for that when the admin screen gets really long is just using the field groups module, making them collapse by default. That way everything is collapsed. If you have a lot of paragraphs with complex layouts, it's not taking up a lot of space. It's much easier than to drag and drop the groups around.
When you add a field that references the paragraph, so like I call my field structured content all this time, so that's my field. I usually either A, have it closed by default, so then you can just see columns, simple, image, columns, columns, columns. Or there is also a preview mode, which you can select the preview view mode, which gets into a lot more complex admin theming. So you could actually say, I have the default display for this paragraph, for these two columns. Or the simple, let's just say. You can actually make another view mode that's only displayed in that mode. So I could just skip the width in the background. We don't need to know about that, maybe. We could have the image print in a thumbnail instead of a big one. We could have the simple truncate at a sentence. So for like larger projects where you do have a budget to go in and like theme for the administrator a lot, those are good things to do. But yeah, it gets unwieldy sometimes. Yeah. Anyone else? All right, if you have any more questions, you can find me in the hallway later. Thanks everybody for coming. And yeah.